Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining the session. Laura's just letting everybody in. Nice Zoom wave or Teams wave, everybody. So we're going to keep this session to probably about an hour, because I'm sure everybody's got lots of International Women's Day celebrating to do. And this is really just a chance for us to launch this forum and for us to have an opportunity to start thinking about how we can work together to gather evidence, to gather information, because what we want is for ERSA be able to have the best case studies, the best links into what's happening, so that when they're out there representing us, they're able to key in, because we know that stories tell the story better than anything else, individual stories. But then also we're looking for the best practice. So what is it that you're doing that can make a difference? So I think I'm going to be really clear that this is not a forum for complaining about things. So we kind of know what the issues are. This is a forum for how we can work together to come up with evidence and to deliver on different topics. And so we will be driven by what ERSA is looking for, but then also if there are issues that are bubbling up that we think need to be raised, then we can raise them with ERSA. So Laura, can I just take some advice on you as to whether we get going straight away?
Yeah, absolutely, go for it.
Okay, lovely. So we decided that it would be a really good thing to be able to do to start this program on International Women's Day. And we all know that today is the Choose to Challenge program. And I'm just wondering if you can see my slides. I'm not used to using.
Yes.
Okay, so in fact, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm going to go straight back. So we thought it'd be really good to launch today. And the theme of International Women's Day this year is Choose to Challenge. And so this is what they've asked us to do. So I kind of feel like it's a really good day for us to do that. And the pictures in here are all members of my team. And we've really embraced this Choose to Challenge. And we've all been looking for, ideas and themes for Women's Day. And what's interesting is that for my entire team, they came up with fantastic kind of quotes that we could use to work with people, feel the fear and do it anyway. And, just brilliant quotes from lots of amazing women. But I'll be honest, mine was Madeleine Albright's, which is there's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. And I know that might feel a bit tougher today, but it feels to me like it's really important that we are looking to see what we can do so that, maybe one day we won't need International Women's Day. So you don't have to be called Elizabeth to work here, but it helps. So the first thing I want to do is to bring in Elizabeth Taylor, who is the director of ERSA and has facilitated our session today.
Okay, so it is really, really good to be doing this on International Women's Day. And as Liz said, what we're aiming to do at ERSA is to build a community of good practice around women's employment. We want to produce evidence and really good practice in the centre, and to make a really strong case for women and work to be embedded in all the mainstream national provisions, but also to have specialist provisions, to have niche provisions, to really get into the detail of what we can do during the period of economic recovery to make sure that women don't get left behind in the labour market, because I think they've taken a real hammering in the last year. I think, children in England have gone back to school today, but what an impact that's had on women's lives and on women at work. And I'm not dismissing the fact that men have contributed to this challenge too, but we know how it works. And so we want to really strive for good jobs in the future and good jobs for women. And the best thing that we can do as the employment support sector is to showcase our good practice. And some of us have been doing this for a really long time, and some of us have been doing this more recently, and there is no scale and no ranking, but it is really, really worth acknowledging that there's been lots of great innovation in the sector in previous recessions, and that we need to make sure that we've got innovation in 21, 22, 23, however long it takes to actually get back. And at the end of the day, what we're striving for is women being economically independent, women having jobs that they choose to have, women having jobs that are not a stress in their lives, but that are a pleasure, and all the good things that can come with work. So it's great to have this forum today, and start building a community of good practice. And I'm going to hand over to Liz. Okay, and happy International Women's Day.
Okay, so I do kind of feel that maybe Boris Johnson does have a sense of humour in that he's done International Women's Day and sent the kids back to school on the same day. So it does feel that there's something happening there. So I wanted to just go through a few points to kind of just set us up for this discussion. So the first of those is that over the last decade, women's employment has been rising, and there have been a number of different drivers to that, and one of those has been changes to the state pension. I'm old enough that when I left school, they said I could retire at 60, and as I get closer to it, it's now 67, and I think for anyone younger than me, it's going to be 68. So those changes to the state pension have drawn more women into the workforce. The second, I think, is a really important one for the employability sector, which has been the increase in lone parent employment. So Elizabeth spoke about how employability programs have risen to that challenge, and I worked on the New Deal for lone parents back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And what was clear was, as you went through that, and as the changes in age that lone parents had to go back to work or actively seek work, actually lone parents did rise to that challenge. And at every point when they were said, well, actually, you know, you need to think about going back to work when your children are 12 rather than 18, now 10 rather than 12, down to 5 rather than 18. And we're now down to 3, which even some of us who are very in favour of this might find a little bit young. But that increase in lone parent employment was driven by employability programs, and NDLP was a really good employability program, but also a better childcare offer. So different governments, from Tony Blair's government through Gordon Brown, David Cameron, Theresa May, and onwards, a better childcare offer has been something that they have gone to the electorate with. And so all these things have driven an increase. But as Elizabeth said, COVID has really made us think that we have to consider what the issues are. So there are more women on furlough than men, and we know, as Elizabeth was saying, that women are more likely, there's a lot of evidence to show that women were more likely during lockdown to be doing more of the caring work, and so were therefore less likely to be able to do work even if they were in work. Info from London today, which I've just picked up from the Mayor of London, is that female employment rose higher than male employment, although that might be different in different parts of the country. What this feels to me is that there's really likely to be more women on the regular programme. So I think Restart will see an increase in the number of women than a regular employability, general employability programme might have expected, due to the sectors affected. And I think what's going to be important there is that to build on a lot of the work that a lot of the smaller organisations have been doing, maybe on BBO projects, to kind of think about how we can raise those issues. And then there are just a couple of other issues that I wanted to raise. I talked about childcare as being a really important aspect, but actually childcare has been under a lot of pressure during COVID and during the lockdowns. And so we might come back and the childcare sector isn't as effective as we thought about before. And then secondly, there have been a lot of issues raised around domestic abuse. We've been working on a programme in West London, but the government have been aware of this, and we've seen that there's been a real increase in the rise around domestic abuse. So although I want to go on and talk about how we can create a flexible workforce, we need to be aware of those issues. So what I wanted to do, and I was hoping to be able to use Jamboards, but I think we might have to do this by just having a more general discussion, and so raising our hands and putting stuff into chat. But is there a kind of a feeling about that a different offer might be required? And if so, what kind of support can we give ERSA to go back to the DWP, to be talking in its forums to other employability organisations about what that should include? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the link to the Jamboards, and some of you might be able to use them. Others of you might find that that isn't feasible, in which case we'll go into chat. But is there anybody, whilst I'm doing that, who'd like to kick this off? If you could just raise your hand so that we can see. Is there anybody who'd like to just kind of come back on those points? So you can raise your hand by Laura, I don't know if I can, if anyone can, if there's anybody here who'd like to come in on any of those points. Catherine.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I just kind of, for me as a mum and doing homeschooling and having all of the pressures that you have normally from being a mum who works, I think, and then you add in the homeschooling element and all of that side of things, I think there's a lot going on, and I think maybe some help around kind of managing all of that, some program that sort of works in you know, those sorts of skills. I think particularly sort of coaching, because that's obviously something that can be done online still, because I think, you know, we're still in that kind of online world for quite some time. But yeah, I certainly think sort of that coaching, mentoring, helping mums who can to deal with all the things that they have to deal with, as well as all the anxieties that that the current climate has brought.
Thank you. I agree. And I want us to have a separate chat about how we can use that factor of both staff and candidates being at home. Is there anybody else who wants to come in on this? Okay, so I have put the Jamboards in. If you can click on that and see if you can edit. If not, then what we'll do is we will pick up issues into the into chat. So if you don't want to raise your hand, is there any points that people want to put into chat? Helen, lovely, thank you.
Hi, I guess this is just a comment. I indirectly work for and with ERSA, but I'm also a working mum, and just wondered what the thoughts were about whether or not the schools are going to be open during the summer holidays. There's various reports on BBC News about, you know, will the school summer holidays be shortened? Will the school days be lengthened for students and children of all ages really to catch up? And I just wondered, you know, do we as a forum and therefore ERSA have a view on that? Is that a good thing for working mums? Is that the worst thing we can imagine? You know, the school summer holidays are often a bit of a problem, you know, because not everyone can just take 6 weeks off. So is that something we would welcome, or actually do we want to give the children a break after what they've been through? I just wondered if, you know, that was something we should factor into our conversation, since obviously that is being discussed right now by government.
I think that's a very interesting question. Is there anybody who's got views on that or thoughts? Anybody who's got any kind of inside information, works in councils, works in government, might have some information on how that might work or what might be happening? I mean, what was interesting from our own programme, we asked women if they would want their children to be going into schools longer, and a lot of them said they wouldn't. Okay, so somebody, is it Abby?
Hi, I don't have any inside knowledge, but I do know that the Labour Party are briefing very much against it. Certainly, with we're in contact with our MPs and stuff, just from a citizens' advice perspective, and we know that it's very much not the policy of the Labour Party in terms of that extension. I have 4 kids, and some of whom have been at school throughout, and some haven't, depending on their school. So personally, I think that should be an individual circumstance based on where the children are in terms of how far behind they are. I think we do have to have a sensible conversation about the kids who haven't done as much work and who are further behind, because everybody agrees that the gulf between children from disadvantaged backgrounds and other children has widened through COVID. So there needs to be something. Holding all children back a year isn't the right solution. Expecting all children to work over summer or longer hours isn't the solution. There needs to be a nuanced approach, in my opinion.
Okay, so I think what's interesting there is your point that there's an individual understanding. I think as a sector, I think that the school holidays is something that is definitely part of how employability functions for women who have children or carers. Any parent who's the main carer for children, and I think it's going to be interesting to see if they do bring in the 5 terms that they're talking about. That would have a massive impact on women's ability to work. Whether it's the right thing, I don't know, but that whole aspect of changing the summer holidays would have a big difference. And on our programme, we see that there are kind of women sort of tend to be looking to go back to work at the same time as we join the gym, which would be after the summer holidays and at the beginning of the year, because at those points they see time ahead of them as being kind of in quite a bigger section, rather than as you're coming up to sort of this time of year when it makes it a lot more difficult for people to contemplate work when they can see the summer holidays coming towards them. Any other general points on if we need an offer? So clearly childcare is one of those, and the idea about what extra we might need that Catherine was raising. What about issues around the fact of different sectors that have been most affected? Does anybody have experience of that in the work that they're doing at the moment? So, for example, in our project in West London, we've got a lot of people in Heathrow who've been made redundant. I'd just be interested to know if people are finding that with the people that are being referred to them. What are the issues that they are? What are the sectors that they're finding being affected? And are women a bigger part of those groups? Anybody got any thoughts on that? Who here is running programs? So put your hand up if you're actually running a program, so that you're working directly. I mean, not you as an advisor, but that your program is working directly at the moment. It'd be interesting to know how many organisations here. Okay, I won't pick on you, Layla. I'm very grateful for you to putting your hand up. Okay, so any of you that are running programs, is there anything that you can feed back to us on what directly you're seeing? I mean, we are definitely seeing women who are closer to the labour market than we would normally work with on our troubled families and BBO programs being referred to us. Anybody else got any kind of anecdotal evidence that we can use?
Yeah, can I speak?
Please.
So we work with women with criminal convictions, and obviously a lot of those women work in sectors that have now been affected, like retail, or predominantly retail and hospitality. And I guess there's just something about making sure that women from marginalised communities have the support they need and are able to participate in the Restart programme and in any other programmes. So we're doing a big piece of work. Well, at the moment, and today for International Women's Day.
Yeah.
Like encouraging more employers to hire women with convictions and to change their hiring practices, and not to discriminate. So it would be great if we could include something about that.
Definitely, definitely, and I think that broader understanding of of embracing people, whatever their background, whatever their situation, and thinking about how we can get them into work. Anybody else working directly on projects who wants to come in here? Okay, so what I'm taking from this is that people are here because they do think that there's an issue. They're not necessarily wanting to put their hands up, and I do understand that when we're in these very large groups, it can be more difficult. Oh, lovely, Maria Elisa.
Hi. Yes. Well, I'm not sure if I'm working in a program. I'm working as an employment support officer. And yeah, I'm having quite a lot of clients within Barnets that they are being struggled to get into work after a big gap after motherhood. Some of them are just being affected by benefit cap and in a very critical situation, and it's been difficult to find employers that are happy to hire a woman in this situation with a very specific schedule available Monday to Friday, maybe mornings. So yeah, that's the example that I can give and share with you today.
Thank you, and I think that's really clear. COVID or no COVID, that is the big issue for women returners, is that women swap time for money, so they end up often being in lower paid jobs because there's far fewer jobs that are flexible, that are better paid. So yes, thank you very much. It's a really good basic point for us to have as a starting point for all the work that we do. Okay, so I'm going to go with the fact that people here are aware of the key issues that women face, and that there's an understanding that they do want to do things. One thing I thought that would be interesting for us to have a consideration of is the fact that we have been working in a really interesting time in terms of developing new ways of working within the employability sector for both the client and the advisor. And within my own team, and if any of you want to come in on this, I know some of my team are here, actually being able to work with people from home to their home has been quite an empowering approach. So we've kind of felt that we've had a lot closer interaction with people, and I was very interested to find out how people felt about that idea of being able to support people, both clients and advisors, and I see that it being a really good thing for both people in that group. If you have children, if you have caring responsibilities, if you whether you're a man or a woman, if you have a disability, and therefore going into work for a particular number of hours can be more difficult, and working from home with the right IT can be a good thing. So anybody got any thoughts on that and how it's been working? Any hands up? Catherine again. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry again. I apologise.
I'm delighted.
We run Access to Work, and we cover Wales for Access to Work. We've also got a couple of other programmes which have always traditionally been going out to see the person, and so obviously those have been changed into kind of online support, and actually we've seen referrals for those programmes increase by 60%. Which is just absolutely enormous. And yes, it could be down to the fact that people are more anxious and need more support, but maybe it's also down to the fact that people are braver, and they want to make a change in their working environment. You know, that they are working from home and they want to make their work from home space the best it could possibly be, because that obviously aids productivity and also general well-being. So you know, I'd be really reticent to go back to that face-to-face approach on access to work, and also some of our neurodiverse programs. I think maybe for somebody who is lacking in confidence, so much so that they don't really want to go out and speak to people and do that sort of thing. I think it's been maybe transformational in that way. So I really hope that when we move forward, there'll be sort of maybe a combined offer, so that people can still access the support online as well as face to face. Definitely.
Diana Hurt from Vestia, you've been talking in chat about blended learning. Is there anything you could add to that? Because that sounds to me like that's a similar thing to what Catherine's saying.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have to say I only recently joined the team, so I can't comment on what they were doing previously, but obviously they were delivering in a classroom. What we found, I think we've got quite a limited course offer. So we deliver employability and personal wellbeing. They are two that have worked really, really well online. Where we've had our biggest challenge, ironically, is delivering IT and digital skills. And the reason I say it's what everyone needs. But actually, if you've got someone with really low levels of IT, how on earth do you deliver that remotely, because they're lacking the very basic skills? And for us, that's probably been the biggest scenario, and probably where the blended learning would work better, because you can meet with them and give them that initial sort of, this is what you do, press here, do that, send them off and, you know, do the rest at home, and then almost come back to celebrate the end of the course. So in my head, that's how it's going to work. But yeah, it's definitely, yeah, it's been a mixture.
Anybody else come in on this? Because I think this is something that this is actually a really practical thing, and it's something that if we want this to work in the next the next programs like Restart and things that are coming up in the Shared Prosperity Fund, we need to be making the case for that now. So within Restart, there are, you know, definite timetables for having face-to-face meetings. Layla Hagman.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, I was just going to add that, well, I think a combination is definitely great, and it's important to make sure that women have access to an internet-enabled device if they do want to access it from home, and maybe if they don't and that's not an option, having the option of letting them come in. But when you have the option, or like the scheduling events, making sure that it works around their timetable so that it can still be flexible. But yeah, we've definitely seen an increase in women attending our workshops just because they can. It's more flexible, it's less scary, less intimidating perhaps, and we've actually been able to extend our geographical reach using it, because we can access women across the country, which has been a great benefit.
That sounds fantastic, and I would agree. We have a regular coffee morning on a Friday morning, and obviously it was a big one on Friday for International Women's Day, but we were able to have 52 women there, which would be almost impossible if you were doing it in a room. Where would we find that? And they wouldn't all be able to get there. And so I agree. I think it's been really fantastic. I also think it stops isolation if you can have the group meetings online. Diana, are you coming back in? I've got two hands up. So who else wants to come back in? Teams isn't my system. I'm a Zoom person.
Oh. I was just going to echo what Layla had said, in as much as we're lucky enough to be able to support our learners with equipment. So if they haven't got access, we're able to deliver that to them. And as a result of that, we have increased the area that we deliver to. And also we've been able to change the timings of our sessions to take into account parents who are homeschooling, so that they can work around the timings of when they need to log their children on for sessions. So yeah, just confirm what Layla had said, really.
So this, I think, is a really interesting aspect, and what I'd really like to do with this is to maybe create some opportunity for us to have some sharing of information outside of this session. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my email into here, and I'd be really, really interested in anyone here. So Deborah, you're talking about how, as a housing association, you've been doing things. Is there anything you want to add to the conversation here?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello there. Good morning all. Just that we've found that it isn't just the kit, it is the basic functional skills around using IT for things other than, you know, the communication aspect that they'll be used to. And we have found, and I totally agree, I think as Bessie has said, that that is the barrier. So we've got the kit, the connectivity is another issue, but the real barrier is they just don't know how to use it. And it really surprises me, given the fact that they have always been immersed in IT, that this functionality is missing. And I think there's a lot of function on using IT for work, but what there isn't a lot of focus on is IT for life and the life skills that we should be, you know, embedding in how we use IT to actually improve our lives. And that's often missing, but we're having a real issue with women who just can't access anything because they don't have the kit, and when they do have the kit, it's used by other members of the family.
I think that's been really clear. So as a team, we've been sort of trying to start our meetings at different times to ensure that staff who have got kids educating at home are able to use it. What we've done is we have set up an app. So we've now created an app because we felt that the key thing that most of the women that we were supporting had was a phone. And almost everybody has a smartphone now. And so we're trying to use that as a way of giving them access to information whenever they choose to get it, by creating folders, but also by trying to end one of the things that I think I would see alongside the point that Maria Elisa made about time as being that women often feel isolated, especially if they've been at home and bringing up children. And so that idea that you can create networks, and that is how people use, you know, a lot of people that we all know now, we only actually ever meet them online and not just during COVID. So I think there's a real opportunity there to think about how we can use things like phones to offer training. We also offer an ESOL program that can be done just on your smartphone. So I think it's about looking at what you can do, but also looking about what's available. Louise, were you going to come in? You seem to have come up on my screen. Lovely.
Sorry. I was just a bit late joining.
Oh, right. Okay. No, I understand what somebody was, that not all packages work on smartphones, but I think that there are, if that's the only thing that people have, there is a way of going about it rather than excluding them completely. But I do understand we need to get more kit out there. So I have put my email into this, but also obviously you can all get hold of the ERSA team if you don't get this. And that's one of the things that I'd really be interested in taking forward this conversation on a relatively speedy basis. Okay, so the last thing that I really wanted to talk about was to call for evidence. So I think that the thing that we're looking for here is for evidence that you can provide for things that have worked. So what we're really looking for is case studies of individuals, because that could always be a really positive way of developing situations, but also that we can look at case studies of approaches that you are taking. And so those particular case studies of activities that you've been undertaking. So I think these ideas of blended learning, the ideas of how you've got developing the IT, because I think that's crucial, but then also just more generally ways that you're developing that support. So what we'd like to do is invite between now and the next session that we have, which is going to be in 2 months, is to bring together a group of people. So what we'll be doing after this session is we'll be writing to you all individually and inviting you to see if you want to be part of a smaller working group that's going to be going through that evidence and having a look at what people are doing. So it would be great if there's anybody here that wants to join in on that. Please do that. So, well, it seems to me that this has been quite a quiet session. Maybe everybody is looking forward to celebrating International Women's Day in their own way. So, so Deborah's just raised a point here about domestic violence. And I think that that's something that there's a really big crossover between our work and supporting women get back to work and our work in looking at what's happening at people at home. So Deborah, I'd be really interested in either hearing more about that now, or when out of this session having to do a piece of work on that we can give to ERSA as a piece of evidence. So you can either raise it now or we can talk outside. Okay. Yep.
So I won't raise it for very long, but I was just going to say, I have raised it with the local DWP and job centres, and they said they would look at tailoring some of the programmes if we think there's a big enough group. And I truly believe there is. A great many of those that have been referred to me have been victims of domestic violence. And also, you also need to think about how you support that individual with the other victims, which are the children in the family setting. And I just wanted to ask and throw it out there, have there been people who've actually done a kind of pre-employability and actually developed their confidence just enough to get them outside the home and feel safe and secure? Because one of the problems we have is they're not really happy about anything else that's going to put something new and strange in their way, given that upheaval of the last 12 months particularly. That's it, really.
I think that's really, really useful. Elizabeth?
Yeah, I just thought it was worth me coming back on the camera. About probably 20 years ago, so this isn't recent, we did a co-location piece with a Women's Aid in Lancashire, where they'd already got their back office in our employment support provision. It was very, like, nobody knew they really used that space. But we then started doing work with women that were in their refuges, and we did some very early stage stuff just about life choices and what they might do next. And it was a great provision because it wasn't funded to get an employment outcome, it was funded to get a progression outcome. And I wonder if I would personally be really keen if anybody wants to do some work about this, about whether we could work something up that we take to funders. And interestingly, I am still in touch with some of those women, some who went on to work with other women, you know, years later. And perhaps I could just engage some of those as well to see if we can to just work it up, because you've got to start with the situation they're in. But we got some amazing outcomes by recognising that it was a longer journey and not a quick fix. So, yeah, anybody wants to work on that, email policy at ERSA, and I would definitely pick that up and run with it. Okay.
I think that would be incredibly useful, because it's I think the point that Elizabeth's making about a longer term support, we've often found that it's women who've moved into our borough from another borough, so they've been moved out of that area, then they're more willing to think about work rather than people who are just facing it. Catherine?
Yeah, hi again. I just wanted to add that before we went into lockdown, we were running a programme in the South Wales Valleys that was designed to move people closer to employment, and that was for people aged 50 plus. It was a fantastic programme. It was so successful. But it was actually a DPS contract, a dynamic purchasing contract. And I think one of the real problems with job centres and commissioning on a local level is that the majority go through and post the work on the DPS, and it's just such. I know a lot of you will have seen that and used it. It's such a horrible, useless system for securing funding locally for the people who need it. So I think we really need to encourage DWP to kind of look outside of the dynamic purchasing system, which is completely not dynamic, and make that sort of funding available, because those organisations who can really help and support, particularly women, in this case domestic abuse, are not necessarily those that are going to be au fait with the DPS and the way that works and have a profile on there, etc., etc. So I think it's about encouraging more suitable funding methodologies from local job centres.
So Elizabeth, I think that's one for us to take up as well, because Elizabeth's doing a lot of work on the Shared Prosperity Fund. And I think the main DWP programs work in a very particular way, but the BBO programs and a lot of the more local programs have been really, really good in looking at those kinds of particular needs. And I think the point that you're making, Elizabeth, about the different types of program, but also having an outcome that is based on getting closer to work, not always to be in work, is really important. Elizabeth, do you want to come back on that?
Sorry, got two computers, use the wrong mouse then. Yeah, I think it is, we've got to recognise that this can be longer term, and I will raise this in some of the more informal conversations with commissioners in the coming weeks. So certainly if anybody who is interested, they just either put it in the chat today or email us at policy, as I said before, then I definitely think we should explore this. Yeah.
Lovely. So Louise, do you want to talk a little bit about the report that Renacci published?
Yes. So I mean, it is 5 or more years old now, but we did a piece of work interviewing people who were on Renacci's employment programs and categorised these 8 different spheres of work where women were facing barriers that were distinctive from men, and that I've put the link to the report in the chat there. A lot of what's written in that report, as I say, it's from 2015, is still very relevant and actually has been exacerbated by the pandemic, of course. But we're really interested in sort of refreshing this report and looking at how we can adapt the insights from this to help women on our programs through the rest of the kind of easing of the pandemic. We work across 4 different employment programs in North and South London, one of which focuses on refugees and supporting newly arrived refugees and migrants into sustainable work.
What sounds really brilliant about that, Louise, is that even though it is 5 years old, somebody's actually gone through and come up with those areas, and maybe we could look together at that being kind of a base for starting work on this. I think that's a really fantastic document to share. Thank you so much. Maria Lisa.
Hi, sorry, I'm just having issues to see all the information that you are sharing in the chat. For whatever reason, I have no access to all this information, and I really would like to know how I can just get the links that you are.
What we'll do is we'll take the links and we'll make sure that you've got them. We'll put them into the report that we send out.
Thank you very much. And also, I would like to know if is there any chances that maybe we can. Sorry, the background voice is my son. Yeah. Mommy's talking. 1 second. Yeah. Sorry. So yeah, the other thing, it was like as I'm working as employment support officer, and probably there's quite a lot of people in this group that maybe they are offering different programs for women or single moms, single parents. I don't know how to, maybe I can get a link with them and then, I don't know, offer to my clients these programs available.
So Laura, there's exciting things coming up where ERSA will be able to, I don't know how much you want to talk about it, but we are looking as we move forward for people being able to share information, aren't we, through ERSA? Is that something we can talk about? Or Elizabeth, that idea that we can share that ERSA is going to be the fount of all wisdom.
We have a new website, and actually it's all there. It's behind the scenes. We're just doing the final adjustments before we go live with it. But within the members area, there is a collaboration space, and there is a collaboration space for working with organisations that work with specifically with women around employment. So we're very close to being able to showcase it, but not this week. So just bear with us, and we will be demonstrating it, I think is the term, in the next week or so. So just stick with us.
And I think that what that says to me is that it's about creating networks. And if we can start to share that information with each other through the ERSA website, which is going to have, it's really going to be interesting to see how we can use this technology to build those networks and to share information kind of, outside these large meetings, which I think will be a lot more effective. So what I want to use these meetings for as we go forward is to bring in speakers that people might want to hear, or to discuss particular topics. So again, if there's anything that that you want to do around topics that you'd like us to be providing speakers, I think the really good thing that anybody could do if they haven't had a chance would be to look at the women's budget and the IES people who were on the ERSA session before Christmas, because a lot of the issues that we're talking about, they spoke about there. Okay, well, it's been really, really interesting to look at the different issues that people are raising. So we started off with talking about the impact on what's happening in schools. We were looking at the specifics around the fact around time. We raised issues around the need for mentoring and support. We've decided that we will definitely pick up on the issues around domestic abuse, around how we can support clients who are best supported at home, and maybe looking at how advisors who are working from home. And Elizabeth and the team are going to be looking at how they can take up these points in their very, very current discussions with funders around Restart, the new Shared Prosperity Fund. So I'd like to just say thank you to everybody for coming along today. It's been really nice to get this going on International Women's Day and to find out the areas that you're interested in. And just to say, please, we will get back out to you and ask who wants to be involved. Please send your information and case studies. And Elizabeth, I know you've had your jab. Everybody get out there and have their jabs. And let's get this sector out moving. Okay, so thank you so much, everybody, for coming along, and we will take this forward. And we've got another session coming up in April.
Yeah.
Thank you.